Good morning and welcome to the STS-114 post-landing press briefing. This morning's participants to my left are NASA Administrator Michael Griffin. To his left, Space Shuttle Program Manager Bill Parsons. To his left, NASA Launch Director Mike Leinbach. We appreciate everybody showing up this morning. What we're going to do is please identify yourself and your affiliate when called upon, and I'm also going to ask that you stand up and wait for the mic handler to come to you before you ask your questions. Before we take some Q&A, we're going to have some opening remarks, and then we'll come to your questions and answers. All right, now NASA Administrator Michael Griffin.
Thanks, Dean. Actually, I'm thinking about resigning my position in favor of Eileen Collins. I mean, she's smarter, more personable, better looking, better pilot. You know, I'm thinking it's a good idea. Obviously, we're real pleased here today. Thanks.
Today we honored the Columbia crew. We brought Discovery home safely. It's a great day. If you want to know how I feel fantastic. So thank you all very much, and it's good to be us today.
Well, on July 26th, we all sat here and said the only thing better than that launch would have been on landing day. And I'm here to tell you it really is truly better. Discovery's home, the crew is safe, and we've come full circle now.
All right, that'll do it for opening remarks. We'll now go to question and answer. We'll start off on the back wall with Mike Cabbage.
Mike Cabbage with the Orlando Sentinel. First for Dr. Griffin. Talk, if you would, sort of put in context what this mission means as NASA gets ready to move ahead now. An awful lot on this mission went well. You had a few things that maybe didn't go as well as you would have liked. For example, the foam shedding problem recurring during liftoff. But just sort of put in perspective what this accomplishment means as you guys get ready to move forward here.
Well, this is the first step back in our return to flight sequence, leading to being able to go forward to complete the station. We needed to get back flying to do that. I would certainly, I would have to take exception that maybe a few things went wrong, other than I think there are 5 places where foam came off the tank that we would, in pieces above our size limit. We don't like that, but that I know of, that's the only thing that went wrong with this mission. And in any imaginably significant way. I think the crew performed beyond fantastically well. The flight directors, who haven't controlled the shuttle for 2.5 years, performed fantastically well. Space Station program, their flight controllers, their engineering team were so good that nobody ever noticed them, and they have not yet gotten the credit they really deserve for being able to deal with 2.5 years of downtime on shuttle resupply, and then bouncing back strong. Everywhere you look was nothing but outstanding success. And the external tank engineers now have some real data to go with all the analysis and the supposition and the conjecture, that they've been having to deal with over the last couple of years as they tried to figure out how to produce a perfect tank without the ability to put a tank into a flight test. So now we had a flight test, and it's not quite a perfect tank, but now they have some data. It's going to be really hard to top this mission.
Let's stay along. Actually, let's go right up front here to Jay Barbary.
There he is, Mr. Reed. Jay Barbary with NBC. Well, congratulations to all of you. I know Bill feels about as good as if the Rebels finally won a ball game, didn't you? But seriously, to all of you, if you had to guess today, when do you think we'll have the problem solved with insulation, and when we'll be back in space? At the earliest?
I couldn't guess right now. I think we still now that we have Discovery on terra firma, then we'll go work those other issues. And I think right now we've got the teams in place to give us that data, that information, and I think in the next week or so we'll get some preliminary findings about where we're headed, and we'll be able to share that with you after that.
What's the odds we'll be back in space this year?
That's another way of asking us to guess, and I don't want to guess. You know, we're going to try as hard as we can to get back in space this year because we have a big construction project we're working on, and we need the shuttle to do it. So we're going to try as hard as we can. But we're not going to go until we're ready to go.
Jay, we're preserving all of our opportunities. We're preserving everything we can to go and do the best that we can, and we just have to wait and see what that turns out to be.
Space Operations Associate Administrator Bill Reedy joined us, just to let folks know.
Glad you could join us, Reeds.
All right, let's continue the questioning, and let's go to the wall back with Tracy Watson.
Thank you. Tracy Watson, USA Today. For Mr. Parsons, what kind of milestones do you think you reached with Discovery touching down safely? I guess this is a version of Mike Cabbage's question, but for you instead. Well,
it's been 2.5 years of just really hard work by this entire shuttle team and this agency, really. When you look at the amount of resources this agency put towards the repair of the shuttle and the vehicle and to get it ready for flight again. And, you know, we kept setting this milestone of we got to return to flight, we got to see this vehicle in the combined environments, and then we got to get her home and safely, and then we're going to see where we go from there. We always knew this was a test flight that was going to give us a lot of information. And so we've come back with a lot learned. I think I'll agree with the administrator. This was a wildly successful mission in so many ways. We have some things that we learned and that we got to go work on, but I think that now it's clear what it is we have to go work on, and we'll go do that. So again, I think we met the milestone of return to flight, and now it's just it's the next test flight is in the works.
And Bill, if I could pile on to that, I'd just say that the way I'd characterize this is more like a relay race. And the torch is now passed to Atlantis and the STS-114 crew, and we're going to continue the test mission that we set out to do 2.5 years ago. And we're about halfway through. We've got some more work to do, but as Mike Griffin has told you, now we have some data to work with. And for the first time in the shuttle era, we've got a real solid place to start. And teams are already at work looking at exactly how we're going to go off and fix those various areas on the external tank. But it's not limited to the tank. We're going to look across the entire vehicle. We're going to look at all the elements. We're going to go over them with a fine-tooth comb, and we're going to characterize exactly what we have and see where we need to go next.
Let's go right up front with Irene.
Irene Klotz with Reuters. I think maybe for Bill Reedy, if you don't mind taking this, considering that this was the first shuttle program, first shuttle to fly that you ever had any information about the heat shield and knew for sure what condition it was in, why was there any anxiety about landing at all?
Well, because it's not simply the heat of re-entry. What we do flying down a soda straw for a flight envelope in this glide halfway around the world to a powered off dead stick touchdown in the middle of the night at Edwards, there isn't any of this that's easy. Eileen made it look like a cakewalk. She did such a spectacular job, and her crew as well. The entire mission has gone just extremely well, beyond I think anybody's expectations ahead of time. If you consider the content of this flight, 14 days, very intensive robotic operations, rendezvous, docking, logistics, more very exotic robotics when you consider the MPLM operations, and then the gap filler removal there on EVA number 3. And then you combine all of that in one test mission. Just retrospectively, return to flight, STS-26 was also Discovery, also off Pad B, but it was a 5-day TDRS deploy flight, landed at Edwards on the lake bed. This went almost 3 times that duration, and this is only part 1 of return to flight. So there isn't a single part of this mission that was easy. All of it was very, very complex and I think very well executed by the flight control team and the support and engineering staff and most certainly the flight crew.
For anyone who'd like to take this, all of you have said many times that this is the first of a two-flight test series, and I'm wondering if there's any consideration at all to going ahead and flying Atlantis with its current external tank just to test if you have some sort of generic problem, or if the problems on Discovery's tank were just one of a kind.
I bet we could all answer this one for you, and that is until we get some information about what the external tank investigation team has to provide to us, until we get some feedback from the Tiger team we've put in place, it's very difficult for us to answer that. I think if we felt like we could go do some things and make this a safer flight, we're going to go do those. If we felt like we understood what happened and there was some way to go and fly without making modifications to the tank, well, we might go do that. But again, we've got to get the information, determine what it tells us, and then take it from there.
All right. Again, I'm going to ask the folks that are sitting down, please stand up when you ask your question. Tom, let's go to Tom in the second row.
Hi, Tom Costello with NBC News, and congratulations on a safe landing. Can you talk about the process now to bring Discovery back over to Kennedy, and what kind of a time frame is that? Do you have any? I mean, what are the logistics involved in such a complicated move? It's been a while since we in the press have followed the minutia of that move from one side of the country to the other.
Yeah, I'll take that one. It's a 7-day turnaround of the orbiter at Dryden, and if everything goes fine, we'll ferry out on day 7. As things have been progressing here at the Kennedy Space Center on return to flight, we tend to look at things a little closer than we have in the past, so it wouldn't surprise me if we get delayed a day or two. That wouldn't surprise me at all. We're going to do it right. We're going to ferry when ready. It's around day 7 or day 8 we'll get out of California. And this time of year, it's at least a 2-day ferry back because of the weather conditions. We always have a Pathfinder aircraft that precedes the shuttle carrier aircraft with the shuttle on back. They'll find the best route across the country relative to the weather, and then bring Discovery home here to the Kennedy Space Center. So about 9 or 10 days, Discovery should be back here. We'll do some of the turnaround processing out there in preparation for her next flight. Not very much, but we offload the cryogenics for the fuel cell system out there. A couple hypergolic operations, very minor, but we do those out there also. So there's a little get-ahead work that we do in California, but principally it's getting the orbiter ready to put on the back of the shuttle carrier aircraft and bring her home to KSC.
Let's go second row right here in the white shirt. Randy.
For Bill Parsons, I'm Randy Avera with Randolph Publishing. The flight test that we just experienced produced quite a bit of flight test data. Part of that data is the new camera mounted on the ET at the LOX line. And when we saw that video, the LOX line appeared to have a vibration associated with it. Does NASA have a team looking into this, and could you give us a status of what you may know at this point?
Well, I can tell you that when we asked the question of all the folks that have done all the wind tunnel testing and everything else, they said that was expected, although it's our first time to ever see it, so it looks, you know, when you see something for the first time, you're kind of saying, I didn't realize it did that. But when you go and ask all the engineers that have been working on it for forever, they say, oh, that's how it's predicted to respond, and so on and so forth. So I think right now it's probably nominal operations. We feel pretty comfortable with that. We'll go over the data and look at it and make sure that we completely understand it now that we've got that additional imagery that we have. But again, I think all things considering, this was normal. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's stay right over here. Let's see if we can get to the second row or third row back there. Blue jacket.
Keith Landry, Fox 35 News, Orlando, for whomever wants to take it. Is it too early to know how clean the shuttle is? Have you gotten an initial report on how clean the shuttle is and how much or little damage there might be? And is it the cleanest shuttle ever to come back?
I haven't got a report yet. They have to safe the vehicle, and so until they safe the vehicle, there's nobody roaming around taking pictures or looking at it. That's probably just about right now. They've probably got it safed here in the next little bit, and we'll get our first looks at it. You know, what we always expect is we would expect a very clean vehicle, but we do have some things we want to go look at, and so we'll get a report back here in a little bit.
Let's go second row green. Please stand up.
Maureen Taylor, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. Given that some of the things done on this mission were done to learn from Columbia, pulling out the gap filler, that spacewalk, all the cameras, and then the belly flip in space, how much of that will need to be done on every mission in the future?
You want to try?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're from Canada, and I'd like to say that this mission would not have been possible without the work of MDR, McDonnell Detweiler Robotics, the work that was done on the shuttle arm, the work that was done on the orbiter boom sensor system, work that was done on the station arm, made it possible for us to complete this mission and get the data that we have, and use all those different new sensors that we were able to field. So my compliments to your fellow countrymen up there in Canada for the work that they have done. They've been with us all along in the return to flight effort, and I think they've done a magnificent job. They should be very, very proud. I think the answer to your question, though, about data is engineers can't have too much data. We would worship at the altar of data if we could have data like this every single flight. We would want that, and this being a test vehicle for as long as we're going to be flying it, you can expect that we'll continue to have instrumentation on the vehicle. In terms of the operations, it may wind up not being as exotic as that or as complex as that as we refine our techniques and our sensing capabilities. For example, I'm sure Bill Parsons can tell you more about this, but the wing leading edge sensor system was purely an experiment on this flight. It showed some very promising results, and so maybe that would allow us to reduce the amount of inspection that's required on the vehicle. I think we were also, quite frankly, very, very pleased with the photography that we got from space station, so it wouldn't surprise me if we continued to do that backflip en route to space station all the time to have really good documentation of the condition of the vehicle. Those kinds of things might persist, but at some point, we need to have used all those data and gotten back into a mode where we can resume space station assembly, because that's really what it's all about, is assembling space station so that we can use it and reap the scientific harvest that we need to get on with exploration beyond low Earth orbit.
You know, I would add that as the weeks progress, we're going to have that information is going to be better understood. We'll probably have some things that we'll be opening up to you and saying, guess what, we got we've analyzed this now, and we can give you some really neat stuff. And the wing leading edge sensors, I think, are going to really provide us some really great information. Turns out we thought they were going to last about 2 days. They lasted almost the entire mission. We probably got some data from them on re-entry. And so again, that's going to be something that we go over and say, how can we make that better? How can we improve that to really tell us what we need to know? And I think, again, they'll find ways to refine everything we've done, make it more efficient, and make it more useful to us.
Let's go to second row, Guy. If you could stand up, Guy.
Michael Yetta, the Washington Post. A couple of questions, probably for Mike and Bill Parsons. First, how did the thermal blanket make it through, if you know yet? And second, how much does it cost to bring the shuttle back from the West Coast?
No information on the thermal blanket yet. Again, when they get the vehicle safe, some folks will go out there. We have some TPS engineers, some thermal protection system engineers going out there. They'll take a lot of data before we do the ferry flight so that we get good information before we bring it across country and maybe do some other things to it. And so we'll go and analyze that and bring that back and tell you how it is. But right now I don't know.
I think he meant that, Mike.
Cost?
You're the guy that pays the bills.
You know, every time we say that, it never is exactly the same. I really don't know. I mean, the quoted in the press is $1 million. I have no idea if that's what it costs or not. It's a cost of some sort, and you know, it's the crew, the people that have to go out there and safe the vehicle. It's the aircraft. It's the, you know, you add it up, and you can add it up a lot of different ways. There is a cost to the program for landing in California, but there's also the safety factor that you have to take with that, and it was the safe and the right thing to do is to land in California today, and then we'll bring her back ferry flight on the 747.
I'll just add a little bit if I can. We sent out 78 folks out to the Dryden Flight Research Center before landing, and tomorrow morning we're going to send out a charter airplane with another 170 folks, and so it's not a trivial amount, but it's what's required to turn that vehicle around and get it on the back of the SCA and bring Discovery home.
All right, let's come back over here to the front row. You in the blue, please stand.
Jonathan Rugman, ITA, and a question for Mr. Griffin. Can the American people have confidence in what is, after all, a publicly funded space program, given that 5 pieces of foam came off the fuel tank, and if it had happened a few seconds earlier, it could have killed the crew?
Well, I think the American people can have confidence in us to work as hard as we possibly can to apply all of the intelligent analysis we can possibly do to understand why that happened and to fix it before we fly again. This is not an enterprise where one can predict the outcome with certainty. I've discussed this on numerous occasions. I've tried very hard to put this for people in the perspective in which I see it. This was the 145th American manned spaceflight. Compare that with the development of aviation, and we're in still the very first stages of learning how to do spaceflight. It's just barely possible to do it. If anything goes wrong, it's not possible to do it. Bill Reedy spoke earlier of a flight envelope returning home like a soda straw, and that's right. And it's just barely possible, and that needs to be understood. Now, it's important to learn how. I will believe, I have believed all of my life, and I will believe for the rest of my life, that this is an important enterprise for America and the world, for humanity to engage in. But it is not easy. What you can count on, what the American people can count on from us, is our very best effort to make it a little bit easier each time.
All right, we have time for a few more questions. Let's stay in the front row right there.
Stefano Colledan for Time Magazine. As I was watching the Discovery coming in, and it looked so nice and so easy, I sort of felt some sadness thinking of Columbia coming back. It could have been the same, and it wasn't. I was wondering if anything like this went through your minds.
Certainly went through mine. I will never be able to forget where I was when we lost Challenger. I had a couple of friends on that flight. I'll never forget where I was when we lost Columbia. I wasn't with NASA at that point, but it was still very personal. I'm sure everyone else involved in the program feels the same way. And when you really understand what is involved in navigating through a successful reentry, it is to the team's credit, to the flight crew's credit, that indeed they make it look easy. But to follow up on my previous answer, it's not easy.
All right, a few more questions back over there, front row, white shirt.
Dan Billow with West TV for Dr. Griffin. Would you kind of put in perspective the step forward in space exploration, if you feel one was made by the fact that you have the first spaceship ever to come home with an inspected and repaired heat shield? How is that important to human spaceflight?
Well, being able to know the initial conditions before we start the reentry on the heat shield from a very careful inspection that included laser, depth measurement of the surface, and being able to see it afterward is a huge step for the entry technology folks. We also clearly have more to learn. If you followed the gap filler scenario that we went through, prior experience we've had on gap fillers in entry is that they can cause a lot of problems. We had tile slumping on STS-114. The structure got hotter than we would like to have it get. We didn't want to repeat that experience on this flight, and the positioning of these gap fillers was annoyingly of concern. So we removed them. But we will get a lot of data out of this flight. We hope to get some more data. This is the start of a new era.
All right, we have time for about 2 more questions. Let's go to third row, person in the green shirt. Please stand up.
Michael Heusner, German TV. How confident are you that you can send Thomas Wright, another German astronaut, this year to space?
I think we've answered that question.
I think we have answered that. You know, until we get some information back from the investigation teams, until we understand what it is we need to go do and what their findings are, we really can't make a prediction of when that'll be. It'll be when we're ready to go, just like we were when we were ready to go with 114.
We need to reset the paradigm here on shuttle flights. Shuttle flights cannot be conducted according to a schedule. We would like if it were so, but it's not so. Okay, what we have for the shuttle system flyout from the President is a retirement date. We are working to that retirement date in an orderly, disciplined fashion. We're going to use the remaining shuttle flights to complete the building of the space station, but we will fly each shuttle mission when it is ready to go.
Back against the wall, Tarek in the maroon shirt.
Thank you. Tarek Malik with Space.com and Space News. Given that you do have an indeterminate time before the next launch and that you might be facing a delay, and that you received much more data than from this flight, is that a boon of sorts to your engineering teams then to kind of have some time to go over all the information that you have received from Discovery and the additional from the gap fillers and whatnot to really understand what's going to happen with what that line is?
Well, first of all, I think to echo what the administrator said, this is a research and development vehicle. It's not an airliner, and it's not a frontline fighter, and you don't put it on the flight schedule and just go fly it. In test flying, you clear each mission based on the results of the previous one, and you clear them one at a time to go fly. That's what the entire commit to flight process is all about. That's why we have flight readiness reviews. That's why we conduct our reviews at launch -2, launch -1, and that's why we review the data of the mission management team each and every day during the flight. I think that what the engineers have shown us this time is they were able to process several missions worth of data, not in an interval of weeks or maybe even months, but they were able to do that real time. They were able to do that overnight. They were able to provide the mission management team with information, the texture and richness of which we have never seen before. And so I think that they'll be able to grind through the data that we've amassed on this flight. I think they'll be able to do that with rapidity. I know that they'll inspect every last little wart that they find in it and see what's out there. As far as how long it takes to clear the next flight, we've been milestone driven on return to flight since the very beginning. When we have the data, when we've reviewed the data, when we're confident that we're ready to clear STS-114, whether that's in September or November or March, so be it.
All right, right here.
Mike Schneider, Associated Press. I was just wondering if you could give us an update on the foam investigation. Is it still pointing to the crack that was found at Michoud?
I think Bill Gerstenmaier, who has been placed in charge of that overall effort, had said he would get an update today from the foam investigation. I don't think he has that yet. It's still early, and I know that we don't, and so I'm just going to have to defer that. I just don't know.
Yeah. Again, we'll be very transparent with that, so as that information comes up, we'll set up any sort of telecon or those types of information to be sure that we put it in context. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up and stop there. Sure. Before
we quit, just one quick little thing. We're going to launch Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter tomorrow. Our science program is the crown jewel, a crown jewel of NASA. It's not only about the manned spaceflight program, although that's what today is about, but I hope a lot of you will be here tomorrow to attend a press conference following a successful Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter launch. That is my hope. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. That'll conclude today's briefing.